I have seen teams, this is not going to be a long show. I have seen teams do some of the craziest things imaginable to have results like that. Especially considering I grew up watching minor league hockey, particularly single A hockey, which in a lot of ways I prefer over the NHL. I have witnessed the Fayetteville Fire Ants come back being down 6-0 and winning 7-6 in overtime with 11 minutes left in the third period before they scored their first goal. I have watched this team, being the Hurricanes, mount some of the most amazing comebacks ever. I've seen them have some of the most pathetic things ever. But that tonight, we have to take a look at that for what it is. That type of game can be season, it can be catastrophic to an entire season. They need to put that shit in the rearview mirror fucking immediately, because there is absolutely no excuse that you have 9+ minutes of power play time, of which I think 34 seconds of it was 5-on-3. You basically, whether you agree with the penalty that was called on Carcano or not, which I do agree with, that was the right call, considering he had his gloves off first and was throwing punches and had a hold of Drury's sweater before he could even get his gloves all the way off and swing back. We were gifted circumstances that a lot of officials would not have made that call immediately. We were gifted circumstances to tie that game. We could not have asked for better circumstances to tie that game. Now, one of the things that I want to note here, this is from Landfall Hour today. This is unacceptable, this performance tonight. 9.5+ minutes of power play time. You have the 10th ranked power play in the NHL versus the 22nd ranked penalty kill. You should get at least, at fucking minimum, one goddamn goal to cut the lead in half and make it interesting. Almost any other team in the National Hockey League with a 20+% power play handed that situation against a sub 80% penalty kill would have absolutely taken control of that situation and won that game. There is zero excuses for what happened in the third period there. Now, as far as how they ended up getting down in the first place, Kochekov definitely got hurt, and he stayed in too long. That was definitely part of it. And then the sequence right after that, you needed a good bump-up shift. You didn't get it. And the game eventually becomes 4-1. Carolina was handed an opportunity to win this game in regulation on a silver platter. And our very best players could not manage the puck on the power play well enough or generate enough high-danger chances to beat a fucking backup goalie. And granted, he's had our number over the past few seasons. But that is unacceptable. That was not Sergei Bobrovsky. That was not Andrei Vasilevsky. That was not Jake Ottinger. That was not Connor Hellebuck in the net. It was Kirill goddamn Vejmelka. I don't think the Canes could have scored against a fucking shooter-tooter. I don't think that they could have put a puck through a lobster bib with the performance that they had over the course of the last 10 minutes of that game, when they were handed something that we might not have got normally as far as the power play there is concerned. A lot of officials in that situation would have not called any more penalties, like particularly the hooking call. And the puck over the glass play, they probably would have just normally done that, because, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, it's a penalty, but it's excessive. We've dealt with that a few times over the last few games with the excessive amount of 5-on-3s that Carolina has had to kill. But this tonight, there is absolutely nothing good to say about anybody. The way that they deployed players over the course of that 10 minutes was abysmal. The first 2 minutes in particular of the initial 7-minute power play sequence, There should have been power play 1 should have been out there for that, operated efficiently, and gotten 1 goal in that 2 minutes. Reason being for that, because when you go to the major, you can start using more of your, when you go to the second part of that, which was the 5-minute major, where you can score as much as you want in that 5-minute time frame, that's when the bench should have been managed a little bit better. That's when you should have put together a third power play unit instead of gassing the shit out of the first and second unit, especially if you know if you do tie that game, they have to be on the ice a whole lot near the end or in overtime. There were multitude of bad coaching decisions tonight to go on top of that. A lot of people want to blame Kochetkov tonight. Kochetkov is the least of the problems tonight. The team in front of him did not play worth a damn, and that's everybody. There is nobody getting a pass from me tonight. We had 1 pretty power play goal. That was the only really good sequence of the entire game. Maybe there was more in the first 7 minutes. I don't know. I was having technical issues with ESPN Plus, as some of you may have seen. But there is absolutely no excuse for this game tonight. Now, I understand every team has a low point, but this is fucking ridiculous. 7 goddamn minutes of power play time, of which 5 minutes of it is a major. You have a power play that's above 20% and you can't get not even 1 damn goal out of it. What the fuck? I've gotten to where I try to not use so much language on this show because I know a lot of people are watching it now, and some people want to have their kids watch. That's why I put the warning out there. The warning take. Put the warning out there ahead of time that if you don't like foul language, don't watch this episode, because I'm holding back a lot of the stuff I really, really want to say. But that was completely inexcusable. Now, one of the other things that I want to look at here, let me pull up the box score. All right, so here's where they got their scoring from. And I talked about 2 of these players in the open in particular, or 3 of them actually. Nick Bukestad, unassisted goal in the first period. Jack McBain from Kessel Ring for their first goal in the third period, which was where everything really changed. Mikhail Sergachev from Dylan Gunther and Matthias Michelli. So that's 2 of the other players I mentioned in Landfall Hour, Sergachev and Gunther. And then Nick Bukestad scoring Utah's 4th goal. They got offense from a multitude of different places tonight when they needed it. They got it from Jack McBain. They got it from Matthias Michelli. They got it from Kessel Ring, and they got it from Nick Schmaltz. But primarily the guys that I said they had to shut down, they got it from. That alone would have been enough for them to win the game 2-1, them being Utah. But their depth players came through for them because Carolina played like shit on the other end. And credit to Utah, particularly Kirill Vejmelka. But there's one thing that I caught Tripp say in the post-game show on FanDuel before I turned it off that I couldn't stand hearing him say it. Oh, well, they got goalie, credit Kirill Vejmelka. It's not that the Hurricanes didn't do enough. No, there is no excuse. I don't care what the XGA, what the Corsi, or what the Fenwick says tomorrow. I don't care what the deserve to win-o-meter on Money Puck says. It should be 100% in Utah's direction for the final sequences of that game. They played their ass off, and Carolina did not match the occasion. Kirill Vejmelka is a backup goalie. He doesn't suck by any means. When we were having our goaltending issues last year, him and Connor Ingram was 2 guys I was looking at for maybe Carolina to go get. But Kirill Vejmelka is not a god, and we made him look like one tonight. Every team has a low point. If this is ours and we get it out of the way now and we're good for the rest of the season, so be it. But that was pathetic. I'm sure Rod dropped a lot of goal horns in the room after this. But there is absolutely nothing, Tripp Tracy included, that could say to cover up how bad that was. If you are a team, at least a playoff team is what I consider this. I don't think it's a cup contender. But if you're at least a playoff team, and you're not an on-the-bubble playoff team, this is a team that should easily place within their division. At least Metro 2, Metro 3 in a tight race. There is no excuse to have 9+ minutes of power play time, part of it being 5-on-3 sequences, and you don't get a single goal. You barely made Vejmelka work for a lot of it the closer it got to the end. You bad roster management decisions. You gas your best players before the final sequences of the game. You essentially had you had a 2-man advantage essentially at the end too, with the other when they had the other power play and it was 6-on-4. There's no reason for this. If we see another game like that this season, I don't know what to think of. I don't know. I don't even know how to quantify that. If we see that, this is the type of game, I'm not trying to be overly dramatic here, but this is the type of game that causes seasons to collapse. The best thing they can do for themselves is forget this shit ever happened, come back to Raleigh, and they need to absolutely fucking destroy Ottawa, and then 22 hours later, they need to destroy St. Louis. Like, they need to win both of those games by 4 or more before I think that they can really say, okay, we're back in business. This game was that bad. Not even the whole game, the third period. The last time I remember Carolina playing that bad, it was the first game Nino Niederreiter played with the Hurricanes. That was the last time that I watched a game and go, you know what? I'm at the point where I'm almost actively cheering for the other team because of how bad Carolina is playing. But Carolina got handed on a silver platter an opportunity to tie that game and still have power play time left over. It was a 5-minute major that followed a 2-minute minor penalty. All they had to do, I mean, this is a lot harder than it sounds, score in the first 2 minutes, and you've got a 5-minute major to get 2 more or maybe even get ahead or get 2 ahead. But they couldn't even cut the lead in half. And you could tell that their confidence was completely deflated. They were totally gassed. This is one of those games that makes you think, okay, do we need to shake up the power play units? Because they're not what they were. They've been pretty cold for the last few games. I know they had 1 goal tonight, but we will never see Carolina get that much time on a man advantage in the course of 1 game ever again. I'll be surprised if we get that much time on the power play over the course of the next 4 games. So I hope to Christ that we do not see another game like this, because that was fucking awful. Let me get to some of the comments here. I'm not going to be up for very long, or I might be up all night because I am lividly mad. J-Dub says, I blame Rod and Stahl. Could see them fundamentally breaking down, and they did absolutely nothing to stop it. That can't happen. Yeah, they were totally deflated. The longer that, especially like the longer that 7-minute power play went on, I can't believe 7-minute power play. That's still a weird thing to say. The longer that 7-minute power play went on, the worse that they got. It got to the point where they were just throwing anything that they could at the net. And then when they stopped passing it, Utah had when they stopped shooting it, they were passing it too much, and Utah had an easier time keeping them on the perimeter. They were selling out to block shots. Utah totally earned that win. We made Kirill Vemelka look like Patrick Waugh. Like, that's just the way it is. But yeah, you're right. The coaching decisions were bad tonight. Defense was bad tonight. Everything was bad tonight. From the outset of this game, at least of everything I saw, Carolina was fundamentally unsound, but there's no reason, even on your worst night, to not at least make a game interesting when you have 7 minutes of power play time, 34 seconds of 5-on-3, followed up with another 2-minute minor, of which part of that's 6-on-4 because you pulled the goalie. They essentially had the entire second half of the third period, they were on a power play. And they didn't get 1 goal. Rod's probably in there chewing their asses, but part of this is his fault. I'm sorry, but it is. I love Rod Brindamore. I really do. But these issues with the power play have been persistent. They go away for a little while, and then they come back in droves like they did tonight. Like, one of the things that I always thought they should consider outsourcing the power play to an external coach, because we got talented enough players to do it. But tonight, it just seemed like it got to the point where it got easier and easier for Utah to kill those penalties off, because it's like I felt like that they were cycling the puck in the same way. They weren't moving a whole lot. They were way too stationary. They were way too dormant. And then when they did put shots on net, they were complete and total fucking muffins. And you can probably tell I like muffins a lot, but not in that fucking situation. Blueberry ones are the best ones. PG, good to see you, pal. I got to message you anyway because I'm going down there this weekend. I was going to see if you wanted anything while I was there. What's up, bro? This game is one of those, you just burn the tape and move on. Not us or our game. Big thing, hoping PK is good. I hope he is too, because I think he just walked down the tunnel because he was pissed off. I'm not entirely sure why Rod pulled him when he did, other than it was that he was hurt or it was precautionary or what. But I hope he's fine, because God knows we don't need any more bad news after that damn game. BTS says 11 minutes power play, nothing to show for it, embarrassing. Yeah, we're going to be the brunt of jokes for a long time because of that. And, I'm just going to take it on the fucking chin. There is nothing I can say about that other than agree with whoever the fuck clowns us for it. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what the fuck happened. Like, it wasn't so bad that I think that they should like revoke our Stanley Cup from 2006, but like it was fucking bad. Smokey says Orlov's guy scored twice in 2 minutes. Yeah, he really got hung out to dry in the second one, though. It's like he stepped to the middle of the ice to try and cover him, and it's just like the goal that Sergachev scored. Yeah, that one was particularly bad. BTS says the 2016 Carolina Hurricanes would judge us for that. Yeah, Gostisbehere reminded me of John Michael Lyles tonight, and that's not a fucking compliment. Sean Walker that was his worst game so far. I don't know what's up with Aho. I don't know what's up with Svechnikov. One of the things that I think a problem is Rod is always trying to force this chemistry between Aho and Svechnikov, and it's not there. I wanted the KK Necas and Svechnikov line back because back a couple of seasons ago, I really, really liked that line. That line worked really well until Svechnikov got hurt and they had to shake things up. Now, I wouldn't want them to do it now because the KK Necas Robinson line is working out pretty well. It didn't tonight, but nothing on the team worked well tonight. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if George Alves was fucking up sharpening people's skates. Just everything was off. Everything everything was off with the game tonight. It was just bad. Like, I'm sure they'll regroup and they'll get past it, but there's nothing good to dissect from this. This isn't even one of those games where, oh, well, they played well and they, put a bunch of pucks on net. They did this, they did that. No, this is just one of those where I just don't care to try and extract anything good from it. Smokey says Canes never get those calls. Yeah, that's why I was like, we got handed this game on a silver platter and we didn't take it. If I was on the other end of things, if I was a Utah fan and we had that many penalties against us because we as Carolina fans have experienced those things, I would be absolutely fucking irate. I'd be like, okay, when is this parade to the penalty box going to stop? Because we all know officiating is at least partially game management. Certain NHL officials have admitted that on hot mics that they didn't know were on. You know who I'm talking about. We got handed a perfect situation and totally fucked it up. That's just the way it is. Jado says Necas was back to forgetting to skate with the puck again. Yeah, his puck management was awful tonight, but everybody sucked tonight. It was just all. The only guy that I think didn't suck was Slavin. And I'm not saying he was good. I just think he didn't suck. And I hate saying stuff like that about this team because I really like this team. I like everybody on it. But Martinook, I'll say that he played pretty well. That's the only other guy I think I can really say played pretty well. Carrier, maybe, but I don't know. I can't find anything good about this game. I just really can't. Travis C., what's up, dude? Hey, buddy, tonight was just a clusterfuck. Not only the game, but the FanDuel broadcast has been abysmal. Yeah, I missed the first, 7 minutes of the first period because ESPN Plus was fucking up, and I'm out of market. So, Smokey says Cooch got kicked in the cooch. Yeah, he did. Because when he, if y'all ever saw Shrek, which is one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid, the part where Shrek is rescuing the princess and he slides down the pillar and he cracks his nuts on the fucking where the pillar's broken at when he's trying to get away from the dragon. That's what that shit reminded me of. It's BTS says I could not watch 80% of the game because of FanDuel. Yeah, dude, there were technical difficulties all over the place. I had mine here and I was trying to find another way to watch it, but eventually everything came back up, so it ended up not being too much of a problem. But in hindsight, ESPN was trying to save me from witnessing that. So I will not say anything negative about Stephen A. Smith for 3 days. That will be my thank you to ESPN. I will not say until Monday morning at 9:00 a.m. I will not say anything negative about Stephen A. Smith. That's going to be how I thank them. Nate says, where is Aho and Svechnikov? They need to be broken up. I've said it on many occasions. I don't know if I've said it on here. I know I've said it in some group chats, and I've talked to my buddies about it. Me and my dad have talked about it. Me and my friend Jeremy have talked about it. Numerous other people. My friend Kevin, who's a big Canes fan as well. They continue to try and force this chemistry with Aho and Svechnikov. The only time that I thought it was there consistently was when they front-loaded the top line back in 2019 with Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen. It is something that lasts for a few games, but then it's gone. Aho's evolving from being a guy who was a scorer flanked by playmakers to being more of a playmaker himself, which that's fine. But if they want to keep that line together with Aho, Svechnikov, and Roslovic, Roslovic and Svechnikov need to switch wings for one thing, because Svechnikov is better at shooting on his offside. He would score more often. He's putting more pucks on net now. He's making those really good power moves. I think he'd be better off doing that from the other side of the ice. And with as well as Jack Roslovic is doing in the goal scoring department, him getting a cleaner looks at the net, being a right-handed shot on the left wing, it couldn't hurt. Aho wouldn't have to do anything different. But the whole team was just fucking bad tonight. But something needs to be shaken up after this game. The lines cannot stay the same right now, even if you go back to them. But there needs to be a game of, okay, let's try and, get the gears turning, doing something different, because that was unacceptable. Jada says Blake needs to be taken out of the PP as well. He looked like a headless chicken out there today. For some of it, he did. Yes, there were a couple of times where he had some good puck pursuits that kept plays alive. But PP1, he's a little out of sync with it. He was good with it the other night, but tonight it was definitely a problem. The whole power play was out of sync. I just think that Blake looked a little bit worse because he's not used to being on an NHL power play a ton, and he also was not used to the guys he was with because he was on the second unit before, so I don't put that entirely on him, but I do definitely see what you're saying, that he did look a little out of sync with the rest of the guys, but the whole power play just looked dormant. They were cycling the puck but not moving their feet enough, and then they'd start moving their feet too much, and they'd fuck up a pass, and it was back at the other end of the ice, and I'm just like, I have no idea how to like even quantify that. Smokey says, agree, Blake shouldn't be on PP1. Yeah, I think they need to, because that was my idea initially, was to bump him up. It worked okay in the Vegas game. I think if they bump anybody up now, they can swap him out with Roslovic, because Roslovic's a right-handed shot as well, and he's got 9 goals, so it wouldn't hurt to move him up to PP1 for the time being, unless Jarvis is ready by the weekend. But he's still day-to-day. Travis E. says, Canes after dark, got to let that foul language fly. Yeah, I'm trying to cuss less, because I know that there's like, I've had people DM me and say, hey, my kids really like your show. And I'm like, oh, shit. I might want to chill out on the language then. I mean, I don't know if they mean kids like teenagers, because if they're like teenagers, I'm not saying anything that they don't hear when they watch like a PG-13 movie or something. But like, I'm trying to tone down on it a little bit, because I don't want it to be off-putting to people. And, things are starting to grow here. But tonight was one of those nights where I was just like, yeah, fuck this. I'm going to talk the exact same way that I do in real life. And in the Navy, like, obviously, I was a sailor, so I cussed like one. Hell, I even did it before that. But tonight was one of those nights where it's like, I tried to, like, okay, I'm going to take a few deep breaths and then go on the stream. But I'm just like, this is fucking awful. Like, that entire sequence, I was starting to actually fall asleep a little bit when it became 4-1. I'm like, well, that's that. And then that 7-minute power play happened. I'm like, surely to God, they'll at least get one goal and cut the lead in half and make it interesting. No. Pat the Ref, welcome back. Melka is fully capable of games like this. If you let him get on a roll in the course of a game, he's a shutout goalie, and he nearly had one tonight. Yeah. If it wasn't for a very, very well-executed power play goal, he would have had one. And quite honestly, he deserved one. I would have been totally fine if he'd gotten a shutout tonight. But this is probably going to send Carolina a wake-up call that they need to make some adjustments sooner rather than later, because like I said, this game can be catastrophic. If it gets in their head, it can snowball. What happened to Jesperi Kotkaniemi last season can happen to the whole fucking team if they don't get this game out of their heads quick. But yeah, they needed 2 goals over that 8 minutes of power play time or whatever it was. Yeah. I mean, one in the beginning part, get another one after the major starts, and you've made it a very, very interesting game. Like, there was absolutely no excuse for that. BTS says the deadly duo, goalie playing good and Kane's playing poorly. Yeah, that's what was just. I'm fascinated at that. I've seen some really strange sequences of hockey in my life. Like, okay, there was one, I remember this clear as day, like it happened yesterday. There was a guy named, this was the Fire Ants. I want to say it was their 3rd season. There was a guy that we got really, really pissed off that he got traded to us. His name was Scott Young. He was 38 years old. He was a defenseman. And we were like, why do we have him here? And we traded a guy named, trying to remember his name, Peter Cermak, I think his name was. Really good player, excellent forward. We traded him to the Winston-Salem Thunderbirds. This was back when they were in the SPHL. Before they have, it's a different franchise than what they have with the Carolina Thunderbirds now. And we were really pissed off that we made this trade. Me and my dad, we were like, why did we do this? Scott Young turned out being a godsend. And the way that we knew that, this guy was really good at taking one step out from behind the net, and he could absolutely laser passes to the guy waiting at the other end. And another reason I remember this, the SPHL was actually the first league to do away with the 2-line pass. And when they tested it when the NHL, or they did it for the first season when the NHL was in the 04-05 lockout. So maybe that was meant to be a test bed for the NHL to see how it would be without 2-line pass. I always thought it was a stupid rule, and it's probably the most significant rule change in history. But Scott Young would step out from behind the net, and he would fire these perfect passes. And this is 2004, 2005. So like these guys are mostly using wood sticks still. But he would take that Coho or Sherwood or whatever he was using. And there was 1 5-on-3 one night. I remember he set up 2 goals almost identically during the 5-on-3. They were shorthanded. Guy named Ryan Kiley scored both goals. He went to the exact same spot on the ice both times. He just found a little bit of open ice, took off. Scott Young hit him with a pass. He scored. And he did the exact same thing the next shift. Scored 2 shorthanded goals, 5-on-3 in about 10 seconds. So when I see something like this, I'm kind of like, how the hell did that happen? Because I have seen things that are more statistically improbable. It is far more improbable that Ryan Kiley scores 2 5-on-3 goals with a guy getting nothing more than a primary assist in the exact same manner in less than 10 seconds than Carolina not getting at least one on that sequence there at the end. That's the unbelievable thing about it to me. Smokey says Canes were 97.6 and expected to win meter. That's unreal, bro. I mean, I know that we're usually ahead in the deserve to win meter anyway, just because of all the possession metrics and everything, but that was... Whew. BTS says they don't know the real Canes. They know the Canes everyone Hurricanes fan talks about. Yeah. Will Park says, I could even see you needed a timeout after the third goal. Threw Martin into the Lions den with no reset while Utah buzzed. We also didn't think that where we make a backup look like a Vezina candidate. Yeah, that was another one of the, you make a good point there. That was another one of the bad roster management decisions tonight that really cost Carolina. If you were going to pull Kochekov out, you should have done it when he initially looked hurt instead of leaving him in there for an entire shift. You have that one go off the crossbar, and I was like, I don't think that went in. And Carolina catches a break. Carolina caught multiple breaks tonight. They were being handed that game in every way possible, and they fucking didn't capitalize on any of it. But there was that, and it was clear that he wasn't squaring himself to the shooter and coming out aggressively like he was. So hopefully he just pulled a little bit, a little something, and he'll be fine by the weekend. That's one of the good things here. They do have 2 days off to figure out what they're going to do about the goaltending situation. But yeah, it's unreal. I don't even know how to describe it. Travis C says, what do you think about the Jarvis injury? I've seen people say he should have got surgery over the summer. Is it going to be a long season for him? I don't know if it's the shoulder, the rotator cuff, I think it was he had an issue with. My dad's not an NHL player, but he has had rotator cuff issues pretty much as long as I've been alive. He had them from the Air Force, and he's never had surgery for it. I think he needs it personally. It would have been better to just go ahead and get it over with, maybe, because even if he did miss the start of the season, because one of the things I've noticed after I had surgery about this, the way that they do a lot of these surgeries now, like for example, Ronald Acuna Jr. that plays for the Braves, the ACLs that he's going to have now are probably better than the ones he was born with, because he tore his left one, then he tore his right one this past season. He'll probably never, or hopefully he won't tear another one, because the ones that he has now post rehab have probably grown back stronger with the intense rehab they were doing. The same thing with Svechnikov, where he rehabbed his ACL, because lately, with the exception of tonight, he's played some of the best I've ever seen him play and just not get rewarded. But tonight, him and pretty much everybody else on the team sucked. Like I said, the only 3 guys I'll say that were not bad were Carrier, Martinook, and Slavin. That's it. But if he needed surgery, if he's making the determination that he should have had surgery now, as soon as the season's over, whenever that may be, he needs to just go ahead and get it done. And if he misses the start of next season, so be it, because we're going to have an even better roster than when we have this season. And, a lot of these guys withstanding tonight just in general look like they're going to be good fits. So realistically, you're looking at Nate just getting signed long-term when he's extension eligible on July 1st. Roslovic, Robinson, you could both see both of those guys staying depending on how they manage the cap, because Orlov's coming off the books. Burns is coming off the books. Morrow and Nikishin come in on ELCs, and they've already burned the first. In the case of Nikishin, he'll have 2 years of ELC eligibility. Morrow will be on his last one. And then since he'll be an RFA, they can wait to sign him after July 1st of the year after that, when his initial ELC expires. But they got to sign both those guys, have the money for that. Eventually, Felix Ungersorm, I think, is going to make the team. Trikazov, Nadeau, so on and so forth. So as long as they project that out and make sure they have the allocated funds, you could potentially keep all these guys. But that's where things are like kind of where they have to be careful with managing the roster and everything like that. But if Jarvis needs the surgery, he can afford to take part of next season off. It's too late now if he can still play, but it's also like we got to think about the long term. We just signed him to an 8-year deal. If he's got to sit for a while now to get healthy, or if he has to have surgery now and hopefully maybe be back for the playoffs, I don't know what that would entail as far as recovery time and everything like that. I'd rather it be done now, but they're still saying he's day to day, so I'm hoping it's nothing too serious. Pat the Ref says, Aho, no shots on goal last game, no shots until the third tonight. Aho's off, and his hesitancy to shoot the puck is rivaling that of Teravainen right now, and I hope he gets it out of his system soon. I'm glad that he's found another gear with the playmaking, but the thing about it is Aho's going the wrong direction right now, and that's why I'm afraid that if the points stop coming as far as assists go, I'm afraid of his defensive game falling off, and then after that, he'll fall off a cliff. I don't want that to happen. As long as he keeps doing the right things defensively, the points will come, but the hesitancy to shoot the puck is relatively new with him. I mean, I know all these players hesitate to shoot the puck when compared to a lot of other teams, but Aho's at minimum, even if a lot of people who say he's overrated would at least still admit he's a top 20 center in the league. So that shouldn't be happening. BTS says, give me Aho's spot. I can suck for $9 million. He's kind of off right now, dude. I'm not going to pretend that he's not. Smokey says, I was Navy too. The struggle is real. Yeah, dude. Like, I'm till this day, civilian life and I don't entirely get along, but the military had gone totally to shit, the last couple of years I was in, so I had to get out. Otherwise, I was going to lose my mind. Coconut Kyle says, do we have Utah again this year? Because Drury needs some revenge. Yes, we play them again on February the 1st, I want to say, because I was actually planning on going to that game. Jack Weldy says, I'm ready for that Cardiac Canes come back this game with that PP, and that was not the same team. That's what I was waiting on. I was at least expecting them to make it interesting so I could be pissed off that they lost 4-3, but be like, okay. They got handed good circumstances and tried to make the most of them. They didn't even do that. They just looked fucking pathetic. I think, I had my own beer league team at one point, and I'm planning on doing that again one day once we're moved out of here. It's just playing beer league up here sucks. We didn't necessarily practice power plays, but I do know there were times where we played pickup together. And if there were 9 of us, I would take 3 guys who were normally on the penalty kill with me, and I would have another 5 guys hey, let's, practice this type of stuff, where, we'd play 5-on-4 in pickup just to fuck around with power play type stuff. And I feel like it looked better than what went on there tonight. I'm not one to criticize professional athletes. Y'all know I stick up for players in a lot of cases where a lot of people talk shit about them, but tonight they've got free reign as far as I'm concerned. That was fucking awful. Travis C says, did you give Frank a treat tonight? Poor pup had to see dad rage. No, dude, there wasn't even any rage. I just sat there in disbelief. I wasn't yelling. I was just sitting there with a blank ass look on my face going, there's no fucking way this is happening. It was just like the last time I remember doing that was game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Panthers when they lost 1-0. I'm sitting there going, there's no way that this is happening. If that was Sergei Bobrovsky in net tonight and that happens, I would have shrugged my shoulders at it a little bit, but I still would have been like, okay, 11 minutes of power play time over the course of the last, 15 minutes of the game or whatever it was, and they still didn't score. Yeah. Smokey says we can probably limp into the playoffs without Jarvis and have him recovered by then. Even without Jarvis, I think that they can make it to Metro 3 at least, or stay in second, something like that, maybe not win the division. At the same time, though, it's like they're banking that cap space from not putting Jesper Fast on LTIR. Whatever move they're planning on making, I think they're looking at someone who they would actually be able to keep this time. Like someone they could sign to an extension like immediately after they get here and we don't have the Gensel situation again. At the same time, though, if we're going to do that, one or two of the top prospects might have to get traded for that to happen because we're starting to run out of room. Depth is a good thing, but it's like it gets to a point where you hit critical mass with it, and you got a bunch of guys overcooking in the minors that are going to get pissed off, not develop properly, and then you have to trade them for less later when their game falls off. Or in the case of situations of teams that don't have enough depth, they undercook them in the minors, or if they send them back to juniors or whatever, or they stay in college too long to the point where they don't have anything left to learn and then come up. And then there's like that gap in development there. And then you go to like where the Canes are at is like that happy median, but that can change really, really quick. So BTS says, have fun Saturday and Sunday. Maybe see you there. LOL. Good night. Yeah, I'll hope to see you there too, but I'm not expecting anything like Saturday and Sunday to happen again. Like this stuff like this happens to every team. It's just the excess that it happened to Carolina tonight was unbelievable. Travis C, good night, guys. See you Sunday. Yep. Or see you Saturday, excuse me. Yeah, I'm going to call it a night after that because I just want to forget about that because that was awful. But thank you very much for joining me. We don't have a whole lot more of these late games. Landfall hour and damage report, if they happen, will be written on Saturday and Sunday since I won't be here. Smokey says the Wolves aren't doing that well, though, are they? Last I looked, I didn't see their record yet. Last I looked, they were not. Actually, I'll tell you real quick. I can look at that real quick before I call it a night. That's one organization I'm ready for the Hurricanes to wash their fucking hands of. Their owner's a loser. Their fans are losers. Let's see. Their playoff format is stupid. That's the whole AHL, that is. The Chicago Wolves are 3-5-1. They have 7 points and are 6th in the Central Division. So, and in the AHL playoff format, let me see here. I think the Central Division sends 6 teams. Central Division sends 5 teams. So 4 and 5 play. 1 gets a bye. 2 and 3 play. The winner of 4 and 5 plays 1. Yeah, see, that's one of the reasons I can't take the AHL seriously, because as bad as the NHL playoff format is, here's the thing about it. The entitlement that Chicago Wolves fans were having is hard for me to understand, considering I grew up watching minor league hockey as well. But it's like they think that they have ownership over players that have NHL contracts that are on like two-way deals and everything. And they're bitching about players getting called up, but then they don't have our players and they only win 23 games last season. That's what's funny to me about it. And they're saying, oh, well, you're not signing enough veterans to develop your players. Okay, Tyson Yost and Brendan Lemieux alone bring you a lot of experience. Like, how many veterans do you want around these guys? You have a loaded prospect pool that's playing for you. You have a stacked team playing for you. When they figure it out, they'll start winning more. But considering the stuff that Don Levin said, I have to wonder, are they actually like acting in good faith and trying to win games with this prospect pool, or are they sabotaging themselves and torpedoing themselves to try and prove their point? Because we have to consider that that's a possibility. We really do. So I don't know. Like, minor league hockey is driven a lot by gate revenue. That's why in the ECHL and the SPHL, the overwhelming majority of the teams make the playoffs, whereas in the AHL, 23 teams out of the 32 make it, and they have this division-based playoff format that's really dumb. It's dumber than what the NHL's playoff format is. I like the way they do it in the SPHL and the ECHL. It's simple. One plays bottom seed, so on and so. Or I'm sorry, in the SPHL, one plays 10, or I'm sorry, one plays 8, so on and so forth. Yeah. So okay. Smokey says Canes control the Wolves now, though, right? They control hockey operations. The Wolves still have control over other things or pretty much everything else regarding their organization. So all their marketing is still there. Their facilities are still theirs, all that type of stuff, the way that I understand it. Oh, got a new commenter here. Adam Gall. Adam. I'm just going to call you Adam. Saw your video on the Kitchens game today. Well done. You got me excited. I'm not even a Canes fan. Keep it up. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. But yeah, when it comes to the whole Chicago Wolves debacle, they bitch about players getting called up and they want to be independent. We let them have that. They get smoked and only win 23 games, and they slightly improve when some of our prospects go back to them. They have low quality reporters going out doing hit pieces for them, and they're in a league that is heavily reliant on gate revenue. They all are. Every league below the NHL is heavily reliant on gate revenue. It costs more to have Flow Hockey, which I had anyway, to watch the Marksman play, than it does to have ESPN Plus to watch the NHL. So, granted, with Flow Hockey, you get every game. So, yeah, it's a messy situation, and I'm really just ready for the Hurricanes to wash their hands of that Chicago Wolves shit. And the funny thing about it is, Smokey, you mentioned that reporter. I pissed some people off because there was one time that I called him out before he published a story, because I knew he was going to do it, before he published a story about the Hurricanes and Wolves reunion. And he was saying, he's basically saying he broke the story. You're not breaking anything that's not a foregone conclusion. If I go on the internet and I write water is wet, that's not a fucking groundbreaking, phenomenal, discovery. It's like the earth is round. Okay, bet. Does that make me special for saying that? Does that make me someone who's breaking the fucking news? No. So I got absolutely fucking accosted for that, primarily by Chicago Wolves fans. And then lo and behold, Don Levin said the exact same thing that I said. He confirmed it later. Well, we were forced to get back with the Canes because that was our only option. Carolina tried to buy an existing or have an expansion franchise. Dundon really wanted to do that. That's well documented. And the league wouldn't allow it. The Board of Governors didn't allow it at the AHL level, if I remember correctly. So they had no choice but to get back with the Wolves. But considering what their owner said, I can't completely say that he's acting in good faith and that they're not like doing something to fuck everything up. I really just don't see that. Like, he's talking about how brutal it was to watch the Chicago Wolves play a couple of years ago when they won a goddamn Calder Cup with our fucking prospects. Nah. All right, boys. I've calmed down enough. I'm going to go to bed. I'll answer this last comment. Smokey says, too bad the Greensboro team won't be AHL. It won't right now. There's a potential for that later because the Charlotte Checkers used to be an ECHL team, and they eventually, our AHL franchise eventually went there. What I was hoping the Hurricanes would do, and part of it's because I used to be stationed there, I was hoping that they would get the Admirals and bring them back to being an AHL franchise because they used to be. It would be relatively close. It would help grow the fan base because you'd get a lot of that Southern Virginia military transplant, maybe just getting into hockey there market that could maybe eventually become Canes fans. And there was a multitude of things that could have worked out there, but unfortunately it didn't. All right, guys, I will see y'all later. I might do a little bit of a stream Friday night before I watch Jake Paul get publicly executed by Mike Tyson. Y'all take care. I will see you next time.